Hello, everybody. This is Gus from Skewed Reviews, and it's Saturday. So, you know what that means? It's a new episode of Cinema Society Saturday. Now, if you're not aware of what that is, I'm part of a group of people that are all huge fans of horror movies. So, what we do is every week we're given a random theme. We then partner up, give our partner a movie that fits within the theme, and then we review that film. So the theme for this week was gateway or kids horror movies. So basically, these would be movies that you would use to introduce someone or even your own children to horror in general. The movie that I was given today was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And my partner for today is the wonderful Amariah Rain. If you're not already following her, please go and do so. She has some great content. So, as I mentioned, Amariah gave me the 2019 film Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So, whether or not you've seen this film, I do hope that you at least have read the books that this is based off on. I grew up on these. This was probably my introduction to horror in general. The stories were great, but even more so, the artwork throughout these books was so good and so terrifying. These books probably explain a lot of why I am the way I am today. I also, by the way, still own my copies of all three of these original works from when I was a child. But anyway, back to the movie. So, in the story for the film, it takes place in 1968, where we have a group of teenagers that are now hanging out on Halloween night. They eventually end up going to an abandoned house, where at one point there is at least a ghost story that a girl used to live there, that if you asked her to do so, she would tell you a scary story through the wall, and then the person who would hear the story would never be seen ever again. Now, of course, like all classic horror movies, someone has to ask for the scary story, and now all of their lives are in danger, as weird and creepy creatures and monsters are now coming after them as their own stories are being written into this book. So here's the first thing I'll say about this movie. I do applaud them for coming up with the concept of having the stories being written about them and being added to this book, because there are so many good stories they could choose from, and I think they chose a couple of good ones. I'd be interested potentially if they do a sequel to see what other stories they end up doing. I also will say a good majority of the creatures in this did look either extremely similar to the illustrations from the books, or at least close enough. Now, here are some of my issues. Number one, I don't think they kept completely to the theme on some of these stories. It just didn't seem to kind of sync up exactly how I wanted them to, but that's going to happen with any adaptation. Things will change. Another big issue I had is I don't understand at all why they decided to put this in 1968, other than the fact that they wanted the one kid to be a draft dodger. Like, it didn't feel like it enhanced anything. It didn't feel like that was important. And also at the same time, it's just something about the acting of the kids in this movie that they felt so new age that they didn't feel like they fit into 1968. I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion. They did do a good job of having some creepy moments throughout the film, and watching it, I will say I think it's a good option for a gateway horror. I would let my own daughter watch this because it's not too terribly scary, but it's spooky enough to kind of give them some chills. As I mentioned, I do have some interest in seeing what a sequel for this film would look like, because they definitely left some loose ends, and in general, there are definitely some stories from the series that I would love to see get adapted in some way, shape, or form. So, at least for me on my scale, I'm going to give Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a 3 out of 5. If you'd like to watch this for yourself, it's currently streaming for free on Netflix. If you do happen to check this out, or if you already have, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments, especially if you used to read the original books. And once again, please definitely go and follow Amariah if you're not already doing so. She has some wonderful content that's connected to both horror talk and book talk. And of course, you can check out the review for the film that I gave her, which was Paranorman. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Cinema Society Saturday. Please check back each and every week as we're always going to try and put out more content. And if you'd like to see what everyone else in the group did, just look up the hashtag Cinema Society Saturday. And keep an eye out as next week we're going to be doing something special. And that's going to actually start on Friday instead of Saturday.